Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. We got more reveals today. So I know if you saw the video earlier, we are not getting more Photon Hypernova support today, it appears, but we actually got the final 12 cards revealed for Darkwing Blast, which includes a handful of OCG imports as well as a couple of TCG exclusives, one of which is super spicy, but we'll get into that. So let's just jump in, start off with the imports, of course. It appears we are getting the Amazonas cards imported here. I thought this was possible to end up in like a Battles of Legends situation, but it's here. No complaints. This was going to be imported somewhere when we found out we weren't going to get the Earth Legendary Duelist set. I hope they still go through and make like a Fire Legendary Duelist set, but we'll have to see. They've done what? They did Wind, Water, and Earth 3 in a row. I really hope they get to Fire because there's a couple of Fire archetypes that could really use it, but that's a discussion for another day. So for the Amazonas stuff, we have the new Fusion Quick Play spell, Secret Arts. Both the new Fusion boss monsters, Augusta and Pet Liger King. We have the new monsters in Spiritualist and War Chief. If I remember correctly, both these are actually pretty good extenders, and I think they search you stuff, or at least one of them does. Pretty good. And then you get the new Pendulum monsters, which is their Golden Whip Master and their Silver Sword Master. They're like removal. They're fine. They're awkward. It's one of those weird instances where it's not a pendulum deck. It gets pendulum cards, and it's kind of clunky, but whatever. It's there. We also get this. This was one of the OCG V-Jump promo cards. Water support card. It kind of just helps like Umi decks mostly. It's Yorishiro of the Aqua. Cool card. Whatever, it's fine. It doesn't really change too much for any Umi decks. And then we get the Goatee cards. We talked about these a couple days ago. So the 2 traps, the 2 new synchros, and the 3 new main deck monsters. Nothing too crazy. I honestly don't think it's enough to really change that much about where Goatee is. Feel free to prove me wrong, but I just think the deck's going to be way too slow. We already saw Destructive Daruma Dharma Cannon or Karma Cannon. This card is pretty insane. It's a pretty insane trap card generically. So now we get to the new stuff, okay? So first off here we have Tilting Entrainment, Tilting Entrainment. There's a typo down here. Level 8 Earth Machine Synchro Effect Monster. 2800 attack, 1600 defense, completely generic. If this card is synchro summoned, you can special summon a level 4 lower pendulum monster from your hand or face up from extra deck. Interesting. And at the start of the damage step, when this card or your pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, but the opponent's monster was not destroyed by that battle, you can destroy that opponent's monster. That's fine. That's like a really weak removal effect, but it's, a little extra, a little bonus effect. It's fine. This card's weird. It seems like it's just kind of like doesn't make a ton of sense, but to be fair, you could synchro into this card using a pendulum. In which would go to extra deck when it's sent for like the synchro summon, and then this card just summons out and summons the synchro back. So like it does, it could make sense to make it at certain times because it kind of just gets you more fodder, gets you a big boy. He's technically removal, or if you're making rank 8s or something like that, he could be useful. Or maybe you're going into Baron de Fleur lines, and this card's an 8, which is easier to climb up into a 10 that way. I don't know. I could see it as like a kind of a synchro climb card for a pendulum deck, but I don't know. It would have to be a very specific set of like circumstances to go into it. Maybe it'll come up. Not sure. Next up here we have Salamander Catalyzer. Cool card. Love the artwork on him. This is a common as well. Level 4 Fire Fiend effect monster. 1600 attack, 200 defense. So I guess he technically works for, what's that deck that needs like fire monsters with 200 or less defense? That'll work. You can reveal this card and 1 Fiend monster from your hand. Special summon one of them and discard the other. Second effect, when a monster is destroyed by battle involving your Fiend monster, while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, and you can only use each effect of him once per turn. I actually kind of like this card. Not generically across the board, but for something like Dark World specifically, and Dark World's like the biggest one here, maybe Fabled as well you could throw in there. This card's pretty crazy, so opening him with any Fiend should be no problem in a Dark World, or theoretically a Fabled deck. He's going to discard them as cost, so even Dark World, which wouldn't normally trigger, would still get triggered. There's also a couple of Fiend Danger monsters, I believe, so that's pretty cool as well. Not a ton of them, but I think 1 or 2 of them are Fiends, which is cool. But yeah, this will trigger any Dark World and get you a level 4 on field. At least, theoretically, you could summon the other one and discard this guy, depending on the situation. But I would assume in most scenarios, you're pitching the other one to summon this guy. He's a level 4. The deck has a couple of level 4s that you could put on board pretty easily. So maybe have a rank 4 package available, something like that. That could be pretty cool. I don't know. I think this card's pretty interesting for those specific decks. I don't hate it. Not a useless card completely. Next up here, we have Bayrock Dragon. It's a level 6 Earth Dinosaur, so it is searchable off of both Oviraptor as well as Fossil Dig. Very cool. 2300 attack, 1800 defense. If a monster you control or in your hand is destroyed by battle or card effect, interesting, destroyed in the hand, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, again, opponent's card this time, so it could be battle or it could be card effect, but it has to be destroyed by an opponent. Target one other dinosaur monster and or one rock monster in grave. Special summon them. You can only use this effect once per turn. This card is just pretty mediocre, all things considered. Most of these scenarios, you're going to be relying way too much on your opponent. It relies on your opponent for a lot. In most scenarios, I would think, and maybe not all scenarios, but some of them. I mean, you do combos where you do pop your own, like Baby Ceratosaurus or Petite Pteranodon, so that could trigger him to come out. But as far as his float effect to get a monster back from grave, it's completely relying on the opponent, where they would just remove this card before they worry about removing anything else. So kind of unfortunate. I think it's a fun card. I wish it was a little bit better because it feels like dinosaurs have been super on the back burner for a couple formats now. I wouldn't hate for them to actually get like a new little wave of support. There's nothing crazy, but like nice little stuff. I think this one's on just a little bit. Not good enough to be played in the deck though. And then we finish up with a new secret rare in the set. This card is called Spellbound, if you want to get a better look at the artwork, because it is pretty interesting looking. Here you go. Very, very creepy artwork, but very cool looking nonetheless. I'll read it from here, actually. All face-up monsters your opponent currently controls cannot be tributed or used as material for a fusion, synchro, exceed, or link summon until the end of this turn. This card's really interesting to me. It is a quick play spell, which makes it way more interesting than even what I was just saying. This card's really, really interesting. Now, I do think it falls into a weird spot of like going second. Not going to be all that good. Like how many decks are trying to tribute or go into their extra deck on the opponent's turn? Some of them do. There are very particular ones that will do that, but not a ton of them. I mean, I guess against Tier it's pretty good, but also with Tier it only makes it so that all face-up monsters they control can't be used for fusion summon. So they can still fuse from grave, which is what they do. So it doesn't block Tier, doesn't block some other stuff, and I don't know. It's a weird card. Going first, I could see it being really good, maybe as a side deck card because you can just set it and flip it on the opponent. Or in a very particular matchup where they're gonna be going into their extra deck on your turn. This could also be really good. I mean, I've been messing around with like World Chalice Sprite, and I like to do quick link summons on the opponent's turn. So even going second, you could fire this off to keep me from being able to do the quick link summon, which is pretty much my strongest interruption in a lot of boards. So there are matchups out there where this card could be decent going second. I feel like it's going to be too lopsided on where it's good and where it's not, that people probably won't main deck this card too much, but it is still a really interesting card nonetheless. I think it kind of ends up in a similar place of the other spell card we just looked at, I think yesterday, in that it's like, it's going to be format dependent, right? What decks are good, how exactly they function, and I think it's mainly going to be a side deck card because I think it's good. It can be like a blowout going first, right? I mean, if you hit them at a really good choke point, you're just choking their entire board from being able to be used for really anything useful, which is insane. But going second, obviously, not always going to be great. But very interesting card nonetheless. I really want to hear your thoughts about this one. A couple of the other ones definitely as well. Maybe the Train Guy, maybe the Salamander. I'd love to hear your thoughts on those cards as well. But this one's definitely the biggest one of the new reveals here. And I'm glad there was one more card that's really interesting. I think this card with the Daruma cannon, as well as the spell card we saw yesterday. It's like the generic searcher. That's really nice. And I think it really helps round the set out with a couple more pretty generically applicable kind of just cards that a lot of people just want to get their hands on if you're just a competitive player in general. And I like that. It adds a nice little floor to the set, I think, because these cards will come up at some point, I believe. But really cool. But that's it for us today. That is the final reveals for Darkwing Blast. I will have a video coming out soon talking about the top 10 cards of the set, so stay tuned for that. Let me know your thoughts down below on these, I believe, 5 new cards we just went over. 4 or 5 new cards we just went over. Let me know your thoughts down below on any of those in particular, if I missed anything while covering those. And I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe if you haven't. Peace.